We're back like a bad rash.
We're your
Grabbing my.
hosts. This is Ash, and I am Sean, and we're your hosts for this fine episode of Boldly Trekking.
Look at you being an MC. I'm so proud of you. No, we had the local meeting this last week, so we didn't have a podcast this last Saturday, and today we are back
In
like a
technical,
bad rash. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to glue together this. I first tried printing this model as one solid piece, and with all the supports it took to put this together, taking the supports out just completely disassembled it, which is a nice way of saying it broke a lot. And so now what I did instead is I went ahead and in the slicing software, I cut it in half and printed half and half. So it all came apart. I mean, it all went back together just fine. So here we go.
cool.
So now I have a model of the ship. I am the very model of a modern Major General. Here we go. Anyways, so what's up, man?
Just doing the standard work thing, and then actually I've been working on getting the Beowulf website together, so that's been nice.
Mhm.
I will say that ChatGPT 5 lived up to its problems that they've been
Hype.
talking about online. It got stuck in a loop while I was working on coding with it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it decided to basically start from a certain point, loop back, and then essentially get stuck in a logic issue and then come back around. And apparently some of the people who were most upset about it were talking about how it seemed like it was having more problems than ChatGPT 4, and actually wanted to go back to ChatGPT 4 because it wasn't working as well.
Yeah.
And I discovered that firsthand because it
Now,
was
here's the
seriously
thing.
late.
You can actually go into the Chat GTP when you have it fired up on your system. You can go and click on and go down to the legacy models and pull up GTP 4.0. So
Okay.
if you want to still use GTP 4 to run your coding, you can do that. I haven't tried. I hear a lot of people say some good stuff about the coding capabilities of Gemini. So I want to give that a shot.
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah. But right now, like me, what I've been working on, well, last night, because I ran out of, I lost my tool. I had to go get more. I've been working on a new lighting setup for, this is what's going to run it. I got a Arduino Nano, and this right here is just a whole bunch of Bojack 2N222 transistors that I have to run everything through because unfortunately the Nano can't handle the number of LEDs that are running to it. What I am doing is in the oh so infamous 1/650 scale 18-inch TOS Enterprise,
Mhm.
I am going to try to create my own Bassard effect
Oh, really?
in these.
Nice.
Yeah, and so what I'm doing, I don't know if you can see here, is I've created this disc that fits in there, and this disc has all the little holes. You know, it's got, what is it, 8 holes going around and plus one in the middle. And I'm going to run, where did you go? Oh, here they are. I'm going to run these little, wrong side, 0805 LEDs in and have it so with the Nano, have it so it runs like, it almost looks like the bar going around. So
Mhm.
it'll flash, these two, then these two, then these two, then these two, then these
Wow.
two, and just basically, do that pattern. And then on the other nacelle, I'll wire them in backwards. So one will spin inboard and the other one, they'll both spin inboard, but
Right.
from the two opposite directions. But yeah, so that's what I'm working on here is just being able to get that to work. But the pins on the Nano can only handle up to, what is it, like 30 or 30 to 40 milliamps of voltage before you run the chance of burning them out. And each of these has a forward voltage of 20 milliamps. So I can't run, conceivably 4 of these through it because it would be too much and it would burn out my little, Arduino. So
Uh-huh.
instead, I have to run everything through transistors that will do the gate switching for it and be able to handle a much higher voltage load. Yeah, so I haven't even checked yet to see if this will fit inside the damn engineering hole, but we're going to find out.
Now you know the real reason
If
that
anything,
the Bonaventure, that from the animated series got designed. They had to stick all little things on the side so they could have the model be built up.
oh, where was it that I saw the Bonaventure model that you could download? There's a site called Model Workshop, but it's spelled MODELWERKS
Hmm.
HOP. That place, they actually have they have the Bonaventure.
Uh-huh.
They have a really good Archer that I'm actually thinking, the next time they have a sale, a half price sale, going to get those files. So I'm
Uh-huh.
not just doing this little one off of Thingiverse. And they also, which I've been working on, they also have the new Strange New Worlds Romulan Bird of Prey. And so, I mean, and the quality on it is really tight. I mean, and so yeah, I really like it. And so, if you want the Bonaventure instead of the Phoenix, that was the one that they used in First Contact, right?
Yeah.
It was the
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in the original canon, it was the Bonaventure, and they have that copy of the Bonaventure. Matter of fact, they used for the Bonaventure, they used the book. Gods, what is it? The original timeline book for Star Trek, which is not the Star Trek Encyclopedia.
Hmm.
Is it the Star Trek Encyclopedia?
Well, it's in
The Star
both. It's
Trek
in the chronology and in the encyclopedia because they were basically published
Yeah.
measurably.
Yeah, I was looking at it because they also have in the Model Works, they also have out of here
Uh-huh.
the original Romulan attack ship that is
Oh,
in here. They have that there fully mocked out to include hangar bays and small attack craft that can come out of it.
nice.
So it's if you're ever wanting to look at some of the, and they have got some really good models. They've even got a full-on K7 that you can build with
Wow.
all kinds of different things on it, including a fully realized
Shuttle bay.
hydroponics deck and
Really?
not hydroponics. What am I looking for? Arboretum.
Oh, wow.
Full arboretum and everything on it, and lots of different, variations of the K series space station that you can do. I suggest you take a look, and they have some fun ones too. Like they have one that's an amalgamation of the Enterprise and the Millennium Falcon. I think
Which
it's
I
called the
still,
USS Falcon.
which I still find hilarious. The history between Star Trek and Star Wars and how ILM artists went, hey, you know what? Let's just lift this out of Star Trek because, like the Millennium Falcon has if you look at Reliant, right, it has deflector pods on the top of the primary hull. Well, if you look at
Right.
Millennium Falcon, it also has deflector pods on the top of its hull.
Let's see here.
Yeah, it's
The
right.
light and blinds. There we go.
Yeah, if you look right
Oh well,
next
you
to
can see the blue bits.
yeah, the little parts right here, little nubs that are sticking out right where the hull line is like that.
Let me get.
Yep, I think they can see it. There you go. Now you can see it. Little
Yeah,
pods that are like right in the diagonal lines coming out of
and
the bridge area.
right
Yep,
there.
yep.
Yeah,
Those are the
those.
deflectors.
Well, if you look at the original refit
Uh-huh,
and TOS, as we've talked about before,
uh-huh.
that is what they had. The deflector dish was not the deflector dish then.
Yep.
That was just a sensor dish and a communications dish.
It wasn't until Excelsior that they went ahead and went whole hog and went, hey, this is your deflector array as well. Like, well, I guess it
Mm-hmm.
is now.
It is now. Yeah, there's no reason they can't put them
Congratulations.
both into one. And I'm trying to see here on the Archer class where did they put them on the sides? Yeah, they did.
Uh-huh.
They have little deflector arrays on the side of the deflector dish. I mean,
Uh-huh.
on
Right.
this I'd move it too. On the side of the sensor dish, just like they did on the TOS.
Well, you grew up with Star Trek Next Generation, so you can't really fault yourself for that because you were you had it hammered in your head that this is the deflector dish. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I only
But
say it like every other episode. So
I do have to admit though that I did not watch any of the Next Generation until the season finale when Picard got borged out. That was the very first of the Next Gen episodes I ever saw because I was was going to college and just not watching TV until I fell in with a whole disreputable band of individuals who watched Star Trek and played Dungeons and Dragons. They were such a bad influence. I was on a good trajectory till I met them.
Aren't you glad you fell into that trajectory?
Some days,
Well, it's also when you
I
got your first taste of Starfleet. I know that.
no, that was actually after I got out of because it was after meeting those people. They were such a bad influence on me. Running away from them, I ran into the Marine Corps, and it was
Okay.
after I got back from the Marine Corps that I fell into to
Oh,
the
okay.
Starfleet.
Okay. Fair enough.
And my character then was half Klingon, half bedded. Yeah, I
So
can
you can
feel your
sense
pain.
people's
Let me increase
emotions
it.
as you chop them up, basically.
So it was one of those. I can feel your pain. Let me increase it. Oh, what is this? Pin it that way. Man,
I will
this
do
is
I
yeah.
will do a little piece of trivia. There's actually a thing that I've actually been kind of amused by because people keep telling me, "Oh, the Hermes class or the Saladin class is in Strange New Worlds," and I'm like, "No, it's not." They're like, "Yeah, it is," and they're
No,
thinking
they
of
made that the Archer.
yeah, they think that the ship in the very first episode is a Hermes or Saladin class, and it's not. The Strange New Worlds version of the Archer class. They specifically
It
call it an
is.
Archer class scout.
It is, and that irritated me. But yeah, no, that was. But there's lots of things in Strange New World that I find it irritating. You know, the whole, you know, why make the Gorn the bad guys? I
Yeah.
mean, didn't you have enough bad guys? Why do you need the Gorn?
I really think they originally were going to go with the Kazenti because the way they wrote some of the stuff for the Gorn in the very first episode that they talk about them, and then after
Mm-hmm.
that, I think they just went off the rails and went, "Hey, let's make it like aliens, and get bit and have alien eggs and what the whole hog."
Yeah, yeah. That I mean, they have gone a little. I mean, and that's one of the problems too. Is they have such a large, as I've often lamented, a large IP to draw from.
Mhm,
Why aren't you drawing from it? You know, it's like this. Like okay, this whole game I'm coming up with for GURPS Prime Directive, because Prime Directive is basically set TOS and TMP era.
mhm,
And that's the source material for Prime Directive. Is that I mean the furthest it gets into TMP is the Excelsior class.
mhm,
So you have that in there, but the whole 4-year war, which went from what is it 2252 to 2256, I believe is
mhm.
the years, because I'm doing
Yeah,
a lot of research on it now.
yeah,
That is, to me, there's so much source material that I want to try to utilize in order to make this campaign that I'm going to be putting together the way that I want it.
mhm,
And because for some stupid reason, what made my brain start to click over on this is for
mhm,
some stupid reason, I don't know why. You know how sometimes the algorithms just start throwing things at you to see what will stick. All
mhm,
right. Well, the algorithms, since they didn't have anything good to stick to me, here recently, they just went with the okay, he's male, he's white, and he's in his mid 50s, so let's feed him World War II crap. And specifically, they were feeding me excerpts of the movie that they made about President Kennedy on his time on the PT 109. And I liked that. And then it just made me realize, that was a whole genre of movie in the 50s and 60s
mhm,
were things based around all of the island campaigns during World War II. I
mhm,
mean, everything from the ultra serious, Iwo Jima type movies, everything to the farcical Father Goose
mhm.
with Jimmy Stewart. Was it Jimmy
Yeah.
Stewart or Cary Grant?
Actually, I think it
No,
was
it's
Cary
Cary
Grant.
Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Cary Grant. Um, and so, like, and even if you look at it, Rescue Rangers, all right, that is basically the the Polynesian archipelago during
Mhm,
World War II. That's that whole genre there, and so there's lots of fodder, and so being able to set up as the characters on a Archer class, which is small, it's basically of this starship wise, it is the same capabilities as a PT boat. It
mhm,
is a is a scout torpedo boat.
mhm.
That's what it is. and it's fast. It gets in and out. It doesn't have a lot of armament, and it basically exists solely on chutzpah, and that's about it. And so I want that, and I want it to be where they originally roll in, like it originally was, for when America, after Japan started rolling through the islands and taking everything, America piece by piece had to take it back. And it was a very fluid field. And, you were operating off of, bases where, good luck getting fuel, or, okay, you only have this many bullets today. So, you better make those shots count. You only get 2 torpedoes, that kind of stuff. So I wanted to have that feel of, of struggle. And then as it goes on and as they complete missions, and, the things that they do are never the big things. They're always on the periphery, but they are instrumental in making sure that the big things can happen. And then as it slowly goes on, things get better. They move away from just being on let me see, what was I throwing here? I had all, because I went to the FOSSA Star Trek where they have all the different lists of everything, of all the ships and all the vessels. But basically, I wanted to start them off where they're basically just sitting there on, where they at, facilities, and just basically like a portable repair facility and a couple Ptolemy cargo containers that are lashed together, and then slowly as it builds up and as the Federation better logistics, because and that's the thing too, is you can tell the people who wrote the IP for the 4-Year War were actual history buffs, because the whole reason, just like in World War II, the whole reason that the Federation was able to overcome the Klingons was really better logistics. I mean, once they put their logistics to it, piecemeal by piecemeal, they were taking it back just through better logistics. The Klingons were much better fighters. All right. They had better warships, but just like the Germans, where they said, one Tiger tank was worth 5 Shermans. Yeah, but they brought 6 Shermans to the fight. So you still lost. All right. Yeah. So that's what I want to do, is I want to build it up like that. But it all starts off with getting good deck plans for this. And there's one site that actually had, the person came up with really good deck plans for this, but he no longer has the deck plans for this on his site for sale. And he's not answering any freaking emails on Facebook or anything like that. So I don't know if I'm going to get the good deck. Well, basically, if you go to, well, let me send it. Let me show you what I got here. Let me see, Archer. I can spell deck plans. There it is. I know that I've searched this many times. So if we go to, here. See, the problem is his plans. And let me share this up screen. His plans here. It's the Starship Dynamics is the guy's thing. All right. And he's got some really good deck plans here, but of course they're all extremely low quality because he wants to sell them. Understood. I want to give you money. I want to buy them. Damn it. But on his website, he no longer has these ones listed. He has a variation of the Archer where he's turned it into a medevac ship, but I don't want that one. And so these are up there, but if you go into it and take a look and try to zoom in, it's all extremely pixelated. So if you want to go in and make this pretty, I would be appreciative.
I can likely do that. How about this cat? She wanted to greet the camera, so I didn't want her to knock the camera down. So anyway.
Well, yeah, she knows I have big dogs, and she wants to taunt them. Taunt.
But the other thing I was going to say about the blueprints is that I actually really like the design, and we've discussed this before, actually. Alex Cruz came out with a Toriel, which is a modified version of it. The thing that it basically comes out as is it's a warp core with an impulse drive, with a photon torpedo launcher, and a couple of phaser banks. And that's it. It's pretty much just, a computer with a warp drive attached and a warp core. Have fun. Hope you don't get shot too much. It's literally a PT boat for Starfleet.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it is not designed for intensive combat situations.
I truly think that a lot of the people who do things, for the whole Star Trek thing, are they're just too enamored by the big beautiful ships.
Mhm.
All right, and everything's the big beautiful ship, and it's just like my lament with Marvel and stuff like that. Everything gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Every time that there's a movie, they have to save even more of the universe. And I really think they need to get back to telling the little stories.
I agree.
All
I
right.
think that would be a more healthy way to do it, and it would actually be less cost intensive, I think.
Yeah. I mean, because you and I were young enough, we remember in the 70s, there was an extremely popular series on TV that was, what is it, The Black Sheep or whatever the hell it was?
Black Sheep Squadron, yep.
Yeah, Black Sheep Squadron. Let's talk about low budget. All
Mhm,
right. But something like that, something where you can tell the small stories, is just in and out, get and grab, like a military version of the A Team. All right. That's the kind of thing that I believe that they should get back into storytelling with, because it turns it into something that more people can relate to,
mhm,
and that's what people want above all else, is something to relate to. Not everybody wants to see, what is it, the Scarlet Witch.
mhm,
The Scarlet Witch didn't do as good as, I mean, she did good. The show, she did good, it did
mhm.
good, but you were not, because at her level of power, you were not going to have a show as good or as long lasting as Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
No, it was
Buffy
never going to
is
be something where
someone,
you're gonna have multiple seasons of it like that.
yeah, and Buffy is something that people can relate, people can put themselves in. Yeah, I would do that. I would stoop spike. Whatever the hell the women could get behind, or the guys,
Mhm.
whatever, you be you. But yeah, it's all a matter of that. I think they need to tell smaller stories.
I would agree. I think the other problem is I think that Hollywood has a tendency to overhype stuff, so it leads to this sort of run-on thing of, if you're trying to sell a story, then you wanna, like, "Hey, it's the biggest, better thing," and you don't get the smaller stories because of it. And I think we're getting to the point where we're getting to burnout. I mean, not only you and I, but I mean, like, generally everybody's getting kind of burnt out because the superhero, you know, movie machine is kind of having having to retread itself a little bit because it's having problems making the sales it once did. Nowadays, it's not quite as lucrative as it used to be. It's still lucrative, but it's not near what it was when it first started with the Avengers and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. They and see, that's the thing, is because if you look at the Avengers, and all of those movies,
Hmm.
all all of them started off small because they had to introduce the character. All right, they started off with small stories, and you know, Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2,
Hmm.
they were smaller.
Okay.
Deadpool 3, they did the thing that they do again, where they turn it to where now he's got to save the world.
Hmm.
All right, he's got to save all of reality. All
Hmm.
right, instead of just sticking to Deadpool doing Deadpool.
Yeah.
Um, and the same thing with Iron Man. Iron Man 1 is just him, first getting out of a cave, and then second fighting with the guy who wants to take over his company. That
Yeah.
was it. 2, it started getting a little bit bigger, and then as it went further on, it just got more and more and more, and then 20 dozen suits flying in and all kinds of stuff happening instead of just staying small. And then everybody's got to have a suit. Pepper's got to have a suit. Fucking Brody's got to have a suit. Everybody got to have a suit. Spider Man's got to have a suit. And it's just they just water it down.
I, I I absolutely agree, and actually, I find it funny that the movie series sort of cross pollinated on onto the comics, and you had Iron Spider, and I was like, "What the is this?" I mean, out of all the
Yeah.
stories that I've ever, I mean, you and I could go on and on about Scarlet Spider forever, but the thing is that Iron Spider is like, let's take Peter Parker as Peter Parker, not even trying to turn him into something else. You know, like, oh,
Mhm.
he's Ben Riley, or but
No matter who's behind the mask, Spider-Man is your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
right,
All right. Granted, that neighborhood is in New York, so you got a lot more stuff going on, but it's still your neighborhood Spider-Man.
yeah,
All right. It's not your Venice, Italy Spider-Man
yeah.
as well as neighborhood. Unless there is a Venice, Italy Spider-Man, then make that his neighborhood.
There's
All right.
Shadow Monkey. Remember, there's Shadow Monkey.
Yeah.
But my point is that putting him in a Tony Stark Iron Man suit was a wrong fit because it doesn't really work with the character, because he
No.
relies on his own abilities, he relies on his own wits and wisdom, such as it is. I mean, he's basically a young man. Well, he's not a young man anymore. It's one of those things where he's old enough that he could actually be as old as us. But or older.
Well, no, he's older than us if you look at the actual chronology of the character.
Yeah,
But I mean, even in the from what I understand, even in the comic books, he's married. All
yeah.
right, and all the stuff like that. I mean, he's constantly getting hosed over, but he's married. Well, yeah, you're married. You're constantly getting hosed over. But and I think that's one of the problems, as we've said many times and times again. That's one of the problems with Star Trek is they don't tell the small story, and everything has to be everything has to be Federation rocking stuff. And then I am a fan of the technobabble. Star Wars and Star Trek have their, not their MacGuffin. They
Mhm,
have their magical thing. With the Star Wars, it's the Force. The Force fixes all the crap. All right. And in
mhm.
Star Trek, it's technobabble. Technobabble fixes everything. Let's reverse the polarity of the tachyon. Okay, great. Now my microwave works. Thanks, man. Sorry. But
It's all right.
the yeah, so I can understand that, but that was one of the things that, I mean, you can still have an overall story arc, and that's the reason that I'm doing this campaign I'm going to do
Mhm,
in something where there is a story arc, where there is a constant back and forth of where the front is, and stuff like that, and there is a story arc because it's going towards a finale of how everything happens and all this stuff like that.
mhm,
But the stories are going to be told small. It's going to be hit and run tactic. It's going to be pick up the stranded individual. It's going to be raid the cargo thing. There's
mhm.
going to be all kinds of little stories to do that will fit into the arc. It's not that their arc, their stories, the arc would not happen without them. All
Right.
right. And I think that's the problem is they make their characters integral to everything. And
Mhm.
in order for them to be integral to everything, they have to solve everything.
Yeah.
And I was recently watching somebody's I forget who, but he's got videos on YouTube, and he was tearing into that with the simple fact of, let me get this straight. You you did this with the starship. You basically turned it into, it was all about the first episode of the second season of Strange New Worlds, where they were able to figure out the sleep cycle of these enemies, and you were able to, take the starship and make it so it could fly closer to the sun than it was ever designed to
Oh, I
two
think I've
suns.
seen that.
And then
Is
you
it
had it
is it the
emulate
same guy
sun.
talking to himself? Is it?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty funny.
Yeah, it was extremely funny because he was like, and you did all this, and how many months were you working on this? Oh, like 8 hours. We did it in 8 hours. Oh my God. Okay, yeah, you guys are all going back to HQ. You're gonna all be in R&D. No, we're gonna continue to fly around and just do stuff. Oh, okay, yeah, you should do that. Yeah, it's stupid the fact that they have to fix everything themselves.
Well,
And
it's Wesley Crusher
understand
syndrome.
it. Well, yeah, it's that, and it's also the fact that, all right, in the original series, yes, they had to fix everything themselves. All right.
Mhm.
But the things they were fixing were not that big. All
Yeah.
right. And two, the reason they had to fix everything themselves is because they were at the far end of everything.
Mhm.
And it would be weeks, if not months, until somebody else shows up. Whereas here, people are flying by like they're on the major route and it's rush hour. All right. And there seems to be always somebody coming up within a couple hours. I mean, why did you go do that if you could have just gotten on the horn, waited 3 hours, and had half the freaking fleet with you? I mean, it just makes no sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm glad there's more Star Trek out there, but they're not thinking's right.
Yeah, I would agree. It's the whole thing that gets me about the whole Gorn as well is that originally the Gorn were like so far out on the edge that they hadn't even charted any of the star systems out
No.
there. And it was
Yeah.
like now it's like, oh well, we're monitoring this, and they have like a little screen. It comes up, shows you like a little transponder signal, and it shows you like fleet. How like
Yeah. It's
do you
like,
do you have like the sensors from hell that can just see everything for hundreds of thousands of light years out in the deep volumes?
yeah, I mean, how are your sensors, even using your subspace sensors, how are they, how are your sensors able to bounce into subspace and then record something out of subspace?
Yeah.
All right. No. And I mean, I can understand it would make sense if you had, you know, fleets of scout vessels out there laying, subspace, laying
Something else.
observation probes and stuff that sit there and record and send stuff back. That makes perfect sense, but they're not doing that.
No.
And also, like if I remember from the TOS, the whole reason that they came across the Gorn is because once again, it was some super powerful being that was messing with them and sent them rocketing way off course and way out of their area. And that's the whole reason they came across the Gorn. Am I right, Mr. Great Memory?
It's actually the original episode was that they were going down to have dinner at a planet, and as they go down to go have dinner, because Commodore Travers invited them, they find that the planet has been completely destroyed, or the base has been completely destroyed. Why they couldn't sense this with their great sensors before they beam down, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's the story. They beam down, they discover,
I know.
oh my god, the facility's been
No,
destroyed.
they figured, I'm reading it right now. The plot, they arrive at Cersei's 3 outpost by invitation of his commanding officer, but the crew finds the outpost obliterated. They beam down and find one survivor.
Right.
All right. All right. So they were able to tell from orbit, and then they beam down. The landing party finds himself under fire from a nearby, with 2 of the security team killed in an initial volley. Enterprise is also under attack from unknown vessel, preventing the crew from beaming up the landing party. Okay, the ship recovers its crew from the surface and begins to retreat. The landing party is beamed back up, and they give chase into unexplored sector. Yes, unexplored sector.
Yeah.
Okay, here it is. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's also the first scene where Scotty really sweats bullets because the ship goes to warp 8 and he's like, warp 8 speed is not good for the ship, Captain. And Kirk is like, well, I don't care. You're going to go warp 8 for 2 hours. And Scotty's like, sweat like dripping off of him. 2 hours later, they finally catch up to the Gorn ship and they're coming across the star system, and the Metrons go, hey, by the way, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
This is not cool.
So their contact, okay, both ships enter unexplored sector of space. Shortly thereafter, lose all propulsion power. Enterprise is contacted by a species called themselves the Metrons, who jealously guard their their sector of space from intrusion. They announce they will pit the respective captains against each other in trial by combat, blah, blah, blah. Loser gets their ship destroyed. Yeah, and then Kirk forms a rudimentary lathe and is able to make a gun. I'm sorry. That is still my favorite line from Galaxy Quest. Look around. Is there anything you can make a rudimentary lathe with? That is the best.
Did you ever see just as an aside, did you ever see the Mythbusters episode where they actually tested to see if you could actually build a cannon like they had in the original series? There's actually an episode.
Even if you were able to, didn't that blow up on them?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. It could never have contained the
explosive
boom
force.
boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had been able to layer in like a lot of like fiber material besides the walls of the bamboo itself, like if you could layer in lots and lots of paper like material and then pack it really nicely and make sure it was really well constructed and didn't have any holes in it? Maybe, but that's a very big maybe.
If I remember correctly, there was in history one time.
Mhm.
No, okay. Wooden cannons have been manufactured and used
Mhm.
in wars in many countries. So you can do it, but they strengthen the hell out of it.
Oh yeah, that's what they did in Vietnam. Is they basically took a bamboo, layered in like paper,
Yeah.
then chambered in all the gunpowder, then packed in your shrapnel, whatever you're going to do, and then was like, okay, we got something to set it off. And then you go
Yeah.
by, and it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
accurate; it just has
No.
to hit you. So
No, no. What's that old saying? Um, bullets have your name on it. Hand grenades are addressed to whom it may concern. Yeah, and that's basically the same thing. It's like claymores. And the thing that always got me about claymores, if I remember correctly, all right, so the maximum effective range is, they told us when I was in the Corps, maximum effective range of a claymore to the front was something like either 500 or 1,000 meters. Those little ball bearings are going to go, all right,
mm,
500 or 1,000 meters. But what they don't tell you is to the back, all right, it is, they say you don't want to be, within 100 meters of the back.
yeah,
All right. And then they give you 30 foot of wire to set it off with. All right. To connect to your clacker, that you squeeze 3 times, 1, 2, 3. It's 30 foot of line. So you better be in a freaking hole.
yeah, or
Otherwise,
behind
you,
a very
just as
solid
much
rock.
as everybody else, is going to be turned into marinara.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that often amused me was that the figure I was given was 550 feet from from the backside of it. From at least two of my cousins, they were like, "If you're anywhere closer than 550 feet from the backside, you're in the zone of unfun times," as they put it. And to me, I was like, "Okay, well, I'll take your word for it because, well, I'm not going to be playing with the Claymore anytime soon." But yeah, I find that the military often equips their personnel with stuff like, here's the zone of destruction, and
Well,
here's how far away you're going to be from the detonation. So you're in the zone of destruction. So you best be finding a
now
place to
maybe
hide.
maybe I'm wrong. Okay, it says here the maximum lethal range is 50 meters. Effective range is 250 meters. Backblast area is, yeah, it was backblast area of 16 meters, and then they gave you 10 meters of firing wire. So you
Okay.
were you were a good 15, 20 foot inside the effective rear area as you were setting it off. Yeah, fun.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's the whole aliens line. You need 15 minutes to reach maximum safe distance. And it's like, guess I'm gonna be kissing my ass after this
Yeah.
because I can't move it that
Man.
fast. So now I did want to, before we get into our discussion about what we were going to go over Star Trek news wise, I did want to go ahead
Mm-hmm.
and sort of like go over the 4 years of war because I don't think we've ever explained it fully what the 4 years of war is. I think we've danced around the periphery of it a little bit. So I guess I'll lead into it, and then you can go in and talk about it yourself. So I'll talk about the discovery part of it because that's one of my favorite stories. So the 4 years war was originally a idea that came out because of the original series. There's several drops that, hey, we had a war with the Klingons. We had this dispute. We had this or we have this treaty that we've negotiated with the Klingons, and the Klingons have violated it. And there's no real you know concrete description of what happened in the original series. There's a back and forth about the dispute and that kind of thing, and Aaron and Mercy, but there's no direct discussion of it.
Right.
And then what happened was the Fana Simulations Associates, FASA, who got the Star Trek role playing game license in like the 90s, went ahead and wrote a book, which was called The 4 Years War. And it basically describes this conflict between the Klingons and the Federation and fleshed it out for fans everywhere. And it almost became gospel for the most part.
Yeah.
Most, I mean, people were using it for source material, and even, I mean, it does get referenced at least obliquely, and I think even in Star Trek Next Generation.
I
But
think it actually. referenced in the Star Trek chronology, which was written by and used by the Star Trek writers.
Right. But
Yeah.
what caused the downfall of the 4 Years' War in canon was a group called Star Trek Axanar who were making fan films. And so this is a word to the wise. If you think you're doing good work, great. I'm glad you think you're doing good work, but don't ever say you're doing work better than Paramount, because that's a good way to get your stuff
No.
shut down. And so essentially Paramount took them to task, and so the first project they decided to do as a Star Trek production vehicle for television, right out the gate, without waiting, since Enterprise was the one previous to it, was Star Trek Discovery. And Star Trek Discovery basically rewrites the canon about the conflict with the Federation and the Klingons and eliminates the 4 Years' War altogether.
Haven't they gone on to, since everybody, for the most part, really doesn't like Discovery that much? Haven't they gone on to say that basically it's not canon anymore?
There's like drops that they keep putting in, that there's like the 4 Years' War elements essentially are kind of getting sort of stuck into the Discovery conflict with the Klingons. But
Yeah.
with the Strange New Worlds, because Mabenga still talks about the conflict the way
Yeah.
that, essentially they did with Discovery, I don't think they're going to necessarily retcon it out of existence. Because Strange New Worlds,
Well,
there's
no.
too much of Strange New Worlds that's based upon Discovery for them to retcon it out of existence.
I understand that. I'm not saying they're retconning Discovery out. I'm just saying they're starting to veer away from the way that Discovery retconned the what was Star Trek canon.
Yeah. Well,
And it just makes sense to me because they have too much source material. I mean, all the books and everything written, they would have to get rid of all of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also the whole thing with Starbase One. If you pay attention to the subtext of Starbase One, and what happens to it in Discovery, Starbase One is completely trashed when you watch like the season with the Klingon Federation War. I mean, they thoroughly trashed the Starbase, but yet in Strange New Worlds, hey, the Starbase is just fine. We've had these pods
Yeah.
since like
Yeah.
since the eugenics wars. We stuck them out here and got a Starbase. It's
Everything's
fine. Nothing happened to it.
peachy green. Yeah. Yeah. And so they're going kind of loose with stuff. So, who knows?
Yeah.
But no, the thing is that got me is that the whole 4 Years War, as I've been reading into it, and finding out more, basically the guys who put that together, once again, history buffs, they're straight up Bay of Pigging the things.
Huh?
All right. Because that's the whole thing. It all starts around this planet Axanar, which is in I forget the name of the system. But, and I should know it. Damn it. I've been doing enough research.
Same name.
Let me see. Here, 4 Years War breakdown. I've done a complete deep dive into it. And let me get back up here. Let me see. Stardate's 20. I mean, it's a date 2252 to 2256. Stardate 94 to Stardate 98. Because Stardates start the year that first contact is made. That's Stardate 1. So 94 is 94 years after they made contact, or 93 years. And basically what happened is that they found out on this in the Arcanus sector discovery of a Klingon garrison enclave on Axanar. So basically same thing as Bay of Pigs, except for where Bay of Pigs is where everything turned Cold War, and it was never it got close, but it never went hot. Here it went hot, and it basically turned into the Pacific, the fight in the Pacific back and forth during World War II, until eventually everything was, the Federation was able to push the Klingons back. And then they went ahead and signed a treaty. Let me see. 2256, the Treaty of Axanar, modest border adjustment, limited envoys inspection. Both powers revert to Cold War behavior with proxy pressures, raids, and espionage. Yeah. And I still want to know because right now I'm going through and I'm watching. Like I said, I've been watching everything, going through it again, and right now I am almost halfway through the Enterprise series, and I haven't gotten back into Discovery yet because I was only able to stomach a couple episodes of that until the giant tardigrades, and that's when I just threw my hands up. But I'm sorry. But the what point do they have the TOS Klingons show up? All right, the ones that are just almost in blackface but not quite.
They're probably going to do that in year one, which will lead into what we're discussing a little bit later with the
Well,
with the
and that's the
story.
thing that gets me is because they know from their battles with the Klingons and the sheer number of bodies left floating in space, they know what the Klingons are supposed to look like. And apparently, according to Discovery, they're supposed to look like they can't even talk because they have so much prosthetic mouth crap going on that they can't even say their lines. That's another thing that pissed me off.
Without chewing the scenery, basically, is what you're saying.
What?
Without chewing the scenery, I'm going to
And
chew up the scene because I'm talking really badly.
I must find my lines. Yeah, no, it was horrible. It's like they went to the wrong dentist and got bad dentures. But so then the question is, are they going to, because like in TOS, that was the Cold War era for Star Trek. All right. TOS up through TMP was Cold War. All right. And so are they going to, have the Klingons there as the Klingons genetically modified so they can better infiltrate into Federation space and steal stuff?
See, that would make more sense, but at the same time, it doesn't make any sense why Starfleet would forget, Lobster Man. I mean, hey, what's going on? What happened to your lobster? What's going on?
Well, it's not that. I mean, if you look at it, the number of times then TOS that they actually come face to face with the Klingons is not that many.
No, it's like 4.
All right. Yeah, like 4 or something like that. So, and all those times, it's when the Klingons are trying to present themselves as, you could say that they're trying to present themselves as not as warrior and as, horseshoe crab foreheaded as they normally are. So perhaps that was their whole espionage wing that they were dealing with. That was their whole section 31, but since it's Klingons and they can't really count that high, 13. I'm sorry. One thing I have to agree with is how they pointed out in Deep Space Nine that the whole Klingon culture had gone too far into the whole warrior mythos, and because of it, they were a stagnating and dying culture. Because when all you glorify is the warrior and death, nobody's going to want to build the ships, nobody's going to want to build the cities and all the stuff like that, nobody's going to want to work in sewage. But that's one thing that they never pointed out in all of TNG and all the other stuff, is the fact that Klingons had slaves. Yeah, they never point out the fact that there's a whole slave caste, and the Klingons will take lesser beings and turn them into slaves. So why aren't they highlighting the fact that they're a slaver race?
There's
And at
actually.
no point
Go ahead. I'm
in
sorry.
no point in G or DS9 or Voyager do they ever say, yeah, we had our own little civil war, we had our own little what do they call it, enlightenment period, and we got rid of all the slavery. They never say that.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those subtext things that ends up like in Sins of the Father, I think, and there's a few Star Trek Next Generation episodes where they deal with Worf's past, and they introduce a character named Kay Lest, who is Worf's nursemaid, and Kay Lest apparently was a freeborn Klingon woman, but there's undertones that that's not necessarily the case with everybody that serves a Klingon house. And so they never really go ahead and just outright say, hey, I was a slave. But they definitely make a distinction that essentially Kahlest was a person who decided to serve the house and wasn't somebody who had been forced to serve the house. So there's a distinction there in the dialogue and speech that tells you in their culture there are people who are freeborn, who can make a decision to do stuff, and there are people who don't. And we're not discussing the
Yeah,
people who don't.
yeah, and yeah, there's a whole caste system and all this stuff like that. There's, you know, in there. I mean, because that was one of my things too. Is one, they glommed on to, they really, in next gen and DS9, they, not in Voyager, but next gen and DS9, they really, hyped up the warrior mentality and the warrior caste. And in my opinion, they way too much. I mean, they got one good popular ship, the Bird of Prey, and they ran with that. Everything was Bird of Prey and the Vorcha. That was it. None of their shuttles, none of their other ships. They were a two ship species as far as those shows were concerned.
Yeah, I mean, when they did show the Katinga, it was mostly just the same stock footage they'd had from Star Trek motion picture, redone, re-edited, with some
Yeah, the
minor
Katinga,
changes.
is just as the refit was the TOS refit. The Katinga was the D7 refit.
Hmm.
That's all it is.
Yeah,
All right.
I mean, literally, it's
Yeah.
what it originally started off as. It was the Phase 2 model of the D7, and they went, hey, you know what? Since we're refitting or redoing the Enterprise for Phase 2, we should really redo the Klingon ship too. And there I've got
Mm-hmm.
photos of it where they're applying detailing, and you can sell it. It's the Katinga that you see in the motion picture. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the funny
Oh, it
part is
is.
that people are like, "Well, the Katinga is not the same thing as the E7." Well, basically, it is. I mean, there's really not much difference in the layout and design specifications. I mean, if you want to take design lineage and look at the difference between the D7 and the Katinga, if you lay them out and you actually do the correct blueprints, no dissing McMaster's blueprints, but the actual Katinga and the D7, if you put them together, more more actually accurately align than the refit and the original Enterprise do. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sit there and poo-poo anybody's idea of, you know, what happened with what ship to cause it to be a different class or whatever. They do that all night long and really wouldn't get anything done. But the thing is that logically, Klingons have to have more of a navy than three ships, but more than just the main two. I mean, there
Mm-hmm.
has to be, there has to be the supply ship. There has to be oh, look, we're trying to do research. We may not be doing research very well, but there has to be
Yeah.
a research vessel of some sort. There has to be, you know, other ships that do other jobs like transport, ferrying materials, ferrying precious, like gases. Like
Yeah.
if you have like gases that you use for particular purposes, something that's an antimatter matter, you know, hey, look, we've made antimatter at our facility. We need from Praxis before it blows up. We need to
Yeah.
take it somewhere. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
have everything
Yeah.
be a warship.
No.
That's not
Well,
feasible.
and not the same warship. I mean, I remember way back in the '80s, late '80s, early '90s, and we would get bored doing D&D, so we'd throw down some starships and just, fossa it up and try to destroy each other. It was
Hmm.
fun. But I remember being irritated because I really liked the Romulans. I mean, that Dideritics. Oh, who didn't like the Dideritics? So I really got, fascinated with the Romulans. And I didn't like at the time
Hmm.
all of the Romulan shuttlecraft
Hmm.
as opposed to the Klingons and opposed to the Federation and everybody else. Romulan shuttlecraft had no weaponry. They were unarmed.
Yeah.
All right. Your basic Federation ship, oh, we're peaceful. Your basic Federation shuttle still has guns on it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like sending your kids off to school in a school bus, but making sure it's got 50 cows on it, man. All right, something's wrong here.
Well, it's like in the
But
episode The Defector for Star Trek Next Generation, they have a Romulan scout ship. It has no weapons. The Derridex is
yeah,
beating the crud out of it. I mean, it's just wailing on it. And he doesn't even fire a shot because he doesn't have any weapons. It's completely
no,
disarmed. I'm like, well, that's a interesting philosophy of design. Your scout vessel
that
has
just tells you
no weapons.
they may be more involved with skullduggery, but the Romulans were inherently a more peaceful people than the Federation. I mean, trickier people, but more peaceful. They are more peaceful than their Vulcan cousins. Vulcan shuttles have fucking phasers on
The Vulcans will actually do. Hey, want to start something? Because we'll give you a Vulcan.
them. Yeah. Let me give you a Vulcan hand. No, it's there's a lot of incongruity, and like I said, there's so many different ships. I mean, if you go through and look at all the different possibilities of ships on the different, in all of the archives and stuff like that,
Uh,
the only reason I can think that they did not have more different types of ships is just budgetary. I
uh-huh.
mean, it will budgetary and bad writing because
Well, yeah.
the alien of the week, they all had their own ships. All right. And there's no reason that your large factions couldn't have more than just 2 or 3 ships each. And I mean, especially when you were like running the big, the large scale campaigns like the Dominion War and stuff like that. All right. So you're coming in with all these different Federation class of ships, but only 2 class of freaking Klingon and 1 class of Romulan. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's fine.
it's either poor writing, bad budget, or you know the Klingons and Romulans just really were not that committed, and so they just like okay, just send Bob and his friends, and we're just gonna
The
hang out
Bob
for the
Fleet.
rest of the time.
Bob Fleet
Yeah,
will take it
Bob
on.
just pissed off.
We'll handle it.
Yeah, yeah,
I actually totally agree with you about the bad writing and the lack of funds. I think it's a combination or composite of both, and I think it actually shows, at least in some regards. This is not a diss to the people who worked on models and production. The Negvar is like a retread or redo of the Vorcha. It's an improved Vorcha. If
yeah,
people are not familiar with the Negvar, basically the Negvar is the dreadnought that appears at the very end of the original Star Trek Next Generation series, where they need a Klingon ship that's the badass that's taking out the poor Olympic class hospital ship, and the Enterprise needs to show up and show it what for. Show 2 of them what for. Basically, it takes a spinal lance cannon, the phaser X plus cannon, and chews through the shields and chews through the primary hull of the Negvar. Yeah, there we go. Without so much as like, hey, you might want to withdraw. No, Riker's like, no, screw that. I'm blow a hole through it. Sends the Enterprise coasting through the remains in a nice little effect shot. One of the most
yeah.
badass scenes that the Enterprise D was ever involved in. And considering how bad it got trashed in yesterday's Enterprise, it actually is kind of, it's one of those fan moments where you're like, oh, the D finally got to wallop some ass. But then it paid for it in generations by getting trounced by a bird. But anyway.
Yeah, that was one of my problems too. All right, so the D is the flagship. It is a monster. All right,
Mhm.
this thing is able to tank everything,
Mhm.
but a couple birds of prey are going to bring it down.
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's even worse than that because at
shield.
least in yesterday's Enterprise, there's 3 birds, and when we get to Generations, just 1 bird.
I know one bird of prey. I mean, and literally the difference between those 2 vessels, that firing a shot from the bird of prey, they should barely have noticed it on the D. They should have been like, did we hit a rock? What the hell? And it should have just been like that. I mean, they just should have, like ran over them and just turned on the windshield wipers and just kept going. All right, and yeah,
There's
so
actually a
that is
there's actually an FX redo I'm waiting for from JT VFX, I think is what it's called. Um, but he actually is redoing Generations so that it has a Vorchaw and two birds of prey, which I can accept that a little bit more because I could see a Vorchaw getting in the mix and being like, okay, you guys, you run interference and you go ahead and distract the D. You take a lot of the hits, and I'm going to sit there and pound it from the rear and constantly shoot at the engineering hull. I could accept that. That might be a little bit more of a tactical workout that I could see possibly happening if they could shoot through the shield. But yeah, the birds of prey
yeah,
taking on the D, be like, okay, what did they do? Oh, they took out the science lab. Okay, I want you to load the entire torpedo bay, 10 photons, full yield strength, 550 megatons. Let's see how they handle this. And launch the
mhm,
full spread and watch the bird of prey go, what? It's a 550 megaton photon torpedo, and then there's another, and then I get it. Well, I'm feeling great. I
yeah,
mean, personally.
or even worse, that whole star pattern where they all just come in at once.
Hmm.
All right, yeah, there should have been no reason that any of those ships could have stood. I mean, it still reminds me of, like, I forget the episode it was where the alien of the week, the species is threatening the Enterprise, and the Enterprise, like, they have lasers. Yeah, that won't even get through our our navigational shields, much
Yeah.
less our real shields. Yeah, it that should have been the case more often than not. You know the reason, if they would have just let the D be the big ass boss bitch that it was, it would have had a more impact when they had gone up against the Dominion and all of a sudden found out that there was somebody else bigger, badder.
Oh yeah.
All right. And I'm sorry, but okay, no, okay. But we can talk about, bridgeheads and choke points of the frickin' wormhole and how easy that would have been to defend. And there's no reason that they should have been, we'll talk about that another time. I mean, no, okay. Anyway,
I'll just say this. Resident Evil has a really good solution for problems coming through a gate. It's the laser fence, and I really love the laser fence idea because all you have to do is put a
yeah,
little ring, and you put another ring, you put another ring, you put another ring, and wow, just stick all these fusion reactors on there, and all we do is
yeah,
anything that comes through the wormhole, as soon as it comes through the wormhole, it's sliced cheese time. I mean,
yeah,
I wouldn't bother to, if you don't put the proper code through, Stargate hit it right. You don't get to come through the gate. You get to be turned into sliced cheese.
exactly.
It's like you're
I'll
done.
just park a big park a big freaking rock there. That's all you got to do. No,
Hmm.
no, but once again, my thing is that I can tell, with a lot of these things and how they utilize these ships and stuff like that, I can tell that the people writing the stories are not military. All right, they're not military people, and to the point that and knowing what I know of Roddenberry, he probably went out of his way to make sure none of the writers had a military mindset, and that's the
I would agree with
reason
that.
that you see a
I would agree
lot
with
of these things improperly utilized. I mean, like when I was watching the Trexworks thing on this Archer class,
that. Hmm.
they had no idea. They were like, oh, that's only 45 meters long, 14 crew, and it's a scout. There's no way that could be a scout. Motherfucker, do you even know what a scout does? All right.
Not
That
really.
would be claustrophobic, and that would be horrible to be in there for any length of time. You've never been in the military service. The fact that you have a room for three guys, that's a luxury. I
Hmm.
mean, everybody gets their own rack time when they get to close the curtain and crank the yank. I mean, that is beautiful time when you're in the military and a young buck. But yeah, so no, you can tell that a lot of this is written by people that have no idea how a military organization works.
Oh yeah.
That's
Well,
all there is.
it's one of the things that people have become kind of inured to Hollywood and TV production, thinking how things look on TV is how things are going to be in the
Yeah.
military. Like I really love the old version of it. So I'm just going to say this: the old version of Tora 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 from the 1970s actually captures military happenstance and activity pretty well. And it shows a
Yeah.
lot of things going on. It doesn't really show the inside of a ship very well, I mean, at least in the United States Navy perspective, because it shows a lot of the bridge activity going on for like people
Yeah.
looking out onto the harbor and whatnot. But to put in perspective, a lot of Navy vessel had a crew mess room, and the crew mess room had the bunks. The people basically got to stay in their bunks in the mess room, and they doubled up spaces. I mean, it was like, oh look, this
Well,
space goes to the machinery room, and this room over here is for the fuel, and this room over here is for food storage, and yada yada yada. It wasn't like there were these huge hallways that you could go down, and you had these nice little setups where everything was just nicely coiched off to sides, and you had your own like
mhm.
little stations and everything like that. That's not how these ships were built. They were built basically to go ahead and maximize efficiency, to get enough people into a ship to crew it, and to have a space where they could be safe during the voyage, so they wouldn't be like washed overboard, obviously, or, have something untoward happen to them. But they could sleep
let,
and they'd be able to live.
let me tell you, the truth of the matter is that when you are getting ready to deploy out for
Mhm.
any length of time, months at a time, you're heading out, you got to have all your supplies with you. We all know this. All right. And at first, you're gonna, you literally, everybody is going to be having boxes in their, in their rooms.
Mhm.
And if you're like really, gearing down for a long cruise, you're going to be sleeping with some stuff. All
Mhm.
right. And that's one of the great things is, when you get like a third of the way through the trip, that's when you actually start getting some room because you're using supplies. All right. And you got your full bunk now. All right. Everything's good. It's only like the last third of the trip that you start going, okay, yeah, we ran out of pancake syrup 2 weeks ago. So everybody's eating their pancakes dry, and then a week later, it's like, well, I hope you enjoyed those pancakes because we ran out of pancake batter. Ain't got none of that anymore. All
Yeah.
right. Or there's so many, when I was out at sea doing stuff, there's so many times where, oh, okay, we need some more milk. Go get a container of milk out of the freezer. So you had to get frozen milk, and then you had to sit there and wait for it to thaw, which I don't know if you realize this, but a galley on a boat in Alaska in the winter, that shit ain't thawing fast. All
No,
right. So you get the milk out today, you're going to have milk tomorrow for your coffee or whatever.
maybe.
Yeah. So basically, when you first get on the boat, first get on any ship, especially when you're taking off, whatever storage space that you have is going to be packed, and then it's going to be overflowing out into the the God, not the hallways. Frick,
Porter.
how am I forgetting my terminology here? Yeah, the passageway, the gangways, and stuff like that, and your ladder wells and all the stuff like that. You're going to be overflowing everywhere.
Mhm.
And then as you go through, you're going to start utilizing the supplies. And yeah, as it dwindles down, you're going to get more and more space. But at first, you're going to be sitting, eating your food on boxes of more food. And
Mhm.
that's just the way it goes. But yeah, so there's everything is not pretty. But if you're, that's the thing is right about the time of TOS is when you start getting to prevalent use of matter replicators. All
Mhm.
right. Before then, they're not used as much. All right.
No.
You can only do basic things with them. And, even in Enterprise, they only had like 3 flavors of ice cream you could get out of the machine. That was it.
Mhm.
But the rest of it is all just, stuff you have to bring on board. You just can't replicate everything until you hit TNG, where everybody gets their replicator time and you go get your guitar made or whatever the hell you want.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's basically a lot of that was just however much matter they had on hand, and how many points they had available to go ahead, or however that worked. It
Yeah.
was kind of
It's matter
confusing
and
that
energy.
how that basically tallied out. Um, I think the other thing that this sort of reflects is people often poo-poo the TOS Enterprise for hey, the walls were made out of cardboard and or plyboard, and it
Yeah.
looked like it's from the 1960s. Well,
because it was.
well, I mean, it was, but the thing is, I will say this: The Expanse, which is one of my other favorite shows for space, shows a very gritty, realistic way to depict starships. Their interiors are basically designed for efficiency. They're not designed so somebody will go, "Hey, this is stylistic. This is very cool, futuristic." No, they're more concerned about, "Hey, I need to pull this cable off the wall, and I need to put another cable on the wall, and I need to redo this pipe that's busted because I need to get this whatever it is going to that site up there up to the next deck." I'm not worried about whether it's pretty or not. I'm worried about if it's accessible. And I think that people tend to forget one of the things that drove the design of the original Enterprise is that everything needed to be accessible. It needed to be interior space where you could get to something, pull it down or pull it out, replace it, and then go on about your business. Because design wise, I think that's one of the elements that I don't think really reflects in later series a lot of the time.
And also, what I think it is, you have, okay, TOS happens right after the 4-year war. 4-year
Mhm,
war was extremely draining
mhm,
on all the resources. All right,
mhm,
because all the resources had to be funneled straight over. That's the reason that right after World War II, especially in the areas where the war actually happened, not super
mhm,
safe USA. I'm talking over in Europe and stuff like that.
mhm,
You had like a decade plus where it was just scarcity and rebuilding, and it was a long time before things entered anything what we over here in cushy West would consider normalcy. And that's the same thing when it comes to that ship. That ship is brutal in its design because it is efficient in its design, and it's only after they have the Kittimer Accords and 30 years of peace and everybody's all nice, they start worrying about putting carpet down on the ship.
mhm,
And that was the thing, what's one of the first things they fix whenever there's any damage? You notice the carpet's great. So apparently, carpet was on the priority list of repairs when it
mhm.
came to the Enterprise D. Apparently, they had entire storerooms that were just rolls of carpet. And
Can you imagine being the person in his position title role, carpet master?
yeah, you are man, I get laid all the time. I like carpet. No, no,
Here's
that's,
here's my tool.
yeah. But that's the whole thing is when you're looking at these things, it's a degree, I mean, even when you look at the difference between 2001 A Space Odyssey and 2010.
Mhm,
All right. 2001 was of that time period where we thought everything was going to be super shiny and happy. All right.
mhm,
That was next gen. That was Roddenberry trying to get back to that super, nice and happy that we had gotten away from. He wanted to go back to that nice future, which, trust me, I want the nice future. I don't want the reality I'm living in right now. All right. I don't want to be just one more news article away from our own Bell riots. I don't want this. And that's what Roddenberry was shooting for. But his original one, the Western in Space, and it was mostly, due to one, the time, because at the time, carpet, wall to wall carpet was just starting to be a thing in society. All
mhm,
right. It wasn't the 70s, shag carpet yet. It was carpet was just starting to become, and everything was, because of budgetary and because of the way things were back then. Even if you take a look at some of the, look, this is how things are going to be in the future of 1985 with our own robots, those kind of things that, Westinghouse and stuff used to make.
mhm,
Everything was still, hard floors, hard walls. All
mhm,
right. And it was not the super soft and cushioned and nerfed walls that you see in the next generation. It was just a different mentality at the time. And a
mhm,
lot of that mentality came out of the fact that we were still coming out of the scarcity that was caused by a worldwide war.
mhm,
I mean, even now with just things, we've got a lot of hotspots happening all over the world. And you see it already with a lessening in the amount of luxuries that we are able to get because what luxuries are out there becoming more and more expensive because we are entering a new era of scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, this era of scarcity is imposed by all the different governments deciding they wanted to see who's got the bigger dick, and none of us peons down here want to be involved in it, but governments govern, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
Anyways, soapbox, not supposed to get on it. I apologize.
I will say that one of the things that I actually find kind of charming and amusing in a way, and sort of dovetails into the 4 Years War, is that
Dovetail or DuckTales? Because both of them apply.
when Paramount came out with the information for the Beowulf and the Starship Creator, they basically said the Beowulf got launched in 2252, and one of the things was people were like, "Well, why would you need another heavy cruiser class ship?" And I'm just like, "Well, the logic
It's
is, I mean,
22.
well, it's 2252. It's the 4 Years War. But the other thing is that there's the thing that is actually mentioned by FASA is that the Constitution class was considered what is called the Queens of Starfleet. And, everybody's like, well, there's only 12 ships like it in the fleet. And that's because what Kirk says in the throwaway line in Tomorrow's Yesterday when he's talking
Right.
to Captain Christopher. But it doesn't mean that they started with 12. It means there's only 12 left. There could have been 36 or 45 before you actually got to that 12. And that's all it's
And
left.
that doesn't mean that they're not laying more holes.
Yeah. But the thing is that the 4 Years War, I always presupposed that the 4 Years War was much more bloody and much more destructive than most people account for. Everybody's like, oh, the 12 came through just fine. Well, what if there were 45 of them and only 12 made it through? And then Starfleet goes, hey, you know what? We know we're going to go into a war, so we're going to build this other class of starship. It's not so much research driven. It has more of a combat priority profile, has a different sensor setup, has different design setup. It's not as doesn't have as much nice stuff. For instance, the Beowulf in the design doesn't have the super turbocharged intercoolers that are on the end of the nacelles on the Constitution class. The original Jeffries design does not have those, so I just omitted them. And so it's a cut down version of the Constitution class. It's basically, hey, what can we get away with to make a combat capable heavy cruiser that's not so much doesn't have as much science priority on it, and we can output a lot of them in a very quick amount of time. And so that's what the Beowulf class is. It's basically a reduced version of the Constitution class. It's not designed to be everything like the Constitution class is. Oh, we can send it on a research mission priority. No, it has capabilities, but it is not that same level of heavy cruiser. And so that's how I'm explaining how the Beowulf class essentially fits into the continuity with what Paramount has produced. And I think it fits because, I mean, in World War II, you had the very top of the line heavy cruisers, and then you had a whole plethora of cruisers and destroyers that were basically modeled after this top of the line version. And the others didn't have as or weren't as capable or didn't have the same features that the other did. So anyway,
Right. I'm with you 100% on it, man. I'm just looking here to see if they had it. Now, what class is it? Is it a cruiser, a battleship, or what?
the Beowulf, it's a heavy cruiser.
Yeah.
It's considered a heavy cruiser.
Okay.
The only place you'll find it effectively online is actually on Memory Alpha. If you look for NCC 1605, you'll find the Beowulf, and it mentions that it's in the Starship Creator. But a lot of the material for the Starship Creator is not really out there much as it used to be, which is funny. But it's also in Space Dock, which was the Last Unicorn Games book for generating starships. It was also in the Last Unicorn Games Federation Ship Recognition Manual. It didn't really have any blueprint, but
Yeah, they don't
described
on
it well.
memory out. I'm should be on memory beta. They're not even giving it a class. It's just NCC 1605. They don't give it a class. They just say it's a Federation Border Patrol starship.
Yeah, on Memory Alpha, I
I'm
think
just looking.
it lists as the USS Beowulf. I'm pretty sure it does, but they may have
Well, no,
updated
I'm just
since I
telling you.
put it.
I don't care. It's not like everything.
True, and it is kind of amusing though how much stuff does get altered in a very short amount of time online, because I've actually seen like people go in and edit like stuff based upon like stuff that has been produced by the Paramount company for like the Starship,
Yeah.
for like the what do they call it, ships of the line calendar. So the guy goes, well, the name of the class is this, but Paramount goes, no, 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 this is the name of the ship, or the name of the class for the ship. And so everybody goes in and like, oh, it's this, and changes it on a wiki. And so it's like the original guy was like, well, this is the name I wanted it to be, but Paramount went and changed it to this. So it is what it is. I just find it amusing at times because it's like people are so like, uh, you know, I would say anal about it. Another one of
Yeah.
my favorite ones is Eridas Sophia, who it's a nom de guerre for a guy who is one of my design people that I absolutely love what he did back in the 80s. He's kind of one of my heroes of Star Trek technology fandom. That Eridas and I have talked many many times, and he produced like some new sheets for the technical manual, and he was talking about producing a new version of the technical manual with different ships. And people were like, "Well, this isn't the original technical manual. I think this is Eridos's work."
Well,
Like, they're like, "No, this is Franz Joseph's work." I'm like, "No, I probably don't think Franz Joseph did this. I could probably talk to his daughter about it, but I'm just gonna put that out there."
yeah. Let me see. What is it? Expanded Fandom has the Beowulf class listed as a heavy cruiser that saw service during the 23rd century, entered service 2252. I think
Yeah.
so. They get, but anyway, yeah, no, it's but how's it going with you getting everything together for your launching?
So that was an interesting thing I was going to talk to you about after we got done tonight.
Okay, we can talk to it after
But
because, anyways, we're at an hour and a
I
half.
did want to say that if I get my ducks in a row, and this is not to say I'm tooting my own horn or woohoo, but or counting my chickens before they hatch. But if things work out with what I was informed today, we may actually be able to go completely for launch and actually have 10, because that would be really nice to have 10 at start rather than 5.
Yes,
Because then I don't have to worry about being under strength when the chapter 1 year or 6 months or however many months it is from launch you have to be up to full strength, and I don't have to go hunting for people. If I have 10, I'm golden anyway, so it'd be great. I wouldn't have to worry about that. But anyway,
I'm sure
it's
as
going
soon as
well. It's going well.
you actually get the actual, paperwork done and start your own, it'll be a lot easier for you to get people to join if they actually have something to freaking join.
Yeah, that
So
that
that's always,
actually
it's always
that actually is
do
part
that.
of the discussion I was going to talk to you about after this, because it's kind of funny. Because
All
your
right.
name
Well,
got dropped, and I was like,
hold on. Let's go ahead and tie this up. We've been going for an hour and a half,
"Oh wow,
and
okay, yeah,
yeah,
let's see,
we can talk more afterwards. All
okay,
right.
cool,
See you, everybody.
hasta la vista, baby."